The first point when you realize you're sluggish is just pay attention on what's going on. There is a saying in Portuguese that says, I was so sluggish, I was even too sluggish to get peeved at myself. That's usually a health issue. Sometimes you might feel slow, torporous, and you're just so tired, you just cannot really get annoyed with yourself. That is usually a health issue. So pay attention what's going on. Check on your health issues. Check diabetes, your blood pressure. Check all these things and see if you're treating yourself properly. We notice we are sluggish, going into lassitude when we are aiming for a result. That's when you know. Sometimes you won't notice any lassitude in yourself if you don't sit down and practice. You won't know you're lazy if you don't put on your sneakers, your shorts, and decide to jog. Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining us in this new video of ours. We are going through actually a series of videos where we talk about switching attitudes, changing attitudes, beginning something new. This is about really being alive. So it's not possible to be alive without changing attitudes, without changing opinions here or there or someone else. It's not about overthrowing your own convictions. It's not about changing your values, but it is much more actualizing, bringing to a daily basis the unfolding of our disposition and how we can put our disposition at our benefit and not getting in our way. Now today we're going to carry on talking about some attitudes we can avoid, some attitudes we can enhance while we are practicing. Remembering that when we talk about practicing, we are talking about physical exercises, we are talking about dietary issues, we are talking about living together, being together, interacting with other people. These things are extremely important in the sense of bringing us our experience of life with more or less stress, with more or less reward gratification. So I would start talking about today one thing that is very common to happen to us is when we are practicing either exercise or meditation or whatever it is, sometimes we can be taken by a feeling of sluggishness. We can feel indolent. We can feel aloof, kind of, is this really that important? And we sometimes feel tempted. Through the sluggishness, we feel kind of hindered in our practice. No. The first point when you realize you're sluggish is just pay attention on what's going on. There is a saying in Portuguese that says, I was so sluggish, I was even too sluggish to get peeved at myself. So that's it. I feel that's usually a health issue. Sometimes you might feel slow, torporous, and you're just so tired, you just cannot really get annoyed with yourself. That is usually a health issue. So pay attention what's going on. Check on your health issues. Check diabetes, your blood pressure. Check all these things and see if you're treating yourself properly, because you have to be well. You have to be well fed, well slept, well treated to get the best out of your practice. Now, let us suppose that it's not actually a health issue. It's a feeling that often nudges in on our decisions and our disposition and harasses our performance when we are involved in any goal-oriented activity. And a health-promoting activity is definitely a goal-oriented activity. We have to recall that mindfulness is also in its own merit is also considered a health-promoting activity. So you might get sluggish when you're wanting to practice. Carbon, I would say almost unavoidable. It's not something that's not good for you and should not pop up. It is good to pop up. It's part of any goal-oriented intention. And that's about noticing that it's annoying. We notice we are sluggish. We notice we are going into lassitude when we are aiming for a result. That's when you know. Sometimes you won't notice any lassitude in yourself if you don't sit down and practice. You won't know you're lazy if you don't put on your sneakers, your shorts, and decide to jog. And when you jog, you realize you're not well, or you're just sluggish, or you're slow, or you're somehow disheartened. If you don't put yourself to the exercise, you won't realize what's going on. So it is about your practice. Coming up against these experiences is about the very marrow experience of mindfulness. It's not something that is coming in to get in the way of mindfulness. No, it's precisely the core. So you realize that on yourself. You know you are in the absolute core of your practice. It's for that you sat down. You didn't sit down to become different or better or more shiny, or for that measure more evolved. You're just sitting there to realize what the hell is going on with you. So flexibility steps in here. And how do I use this agility, this flexibility? How does it step in? Let's remember that you will be flexible in the exact proportion in which you don't allow this sluggishness to kind of further interrupt your practice. Now, flexibility has to do with adaptability. And adaptability on its own, in turn, talks about a reduction in stress. If you recall the work of Hans Selye was the man who brought in the experience of stress, the concept of stress in biological science. And actually, the work where he talks about stress, the title is A General Theory of Adaptation. So what Selye was focusing on was not exactly stress, but adaptation. And this idea carries on, it continues today. That's what it is all about. Stress reduction is not about reducing stress. Stress reduction is about enhancing adaptability. It's perfect. Stress reduction, I use it. I know dozens of authors, dozens of people who use it. But still, it's important to remember it is a negative concept. It's the concept of something that has gone wrong, has gone an experience that has gone astray. It's not something in itself, like, for instance, this virus I have today attacking my airways. It's something, it's a microorganism. It's come from outside. It's infected me. Maybe I did a couple of things that made it easy, made it easy to get ill. But anyway, I wouldn't be like this if it weren't for a microorganism. Now, stress is not caused by a microorganism. Stress is the final result. It's the net effect of a poor adaptability. It's there why I was not able to adapt. And it's all about adaptation. And then you have the lassitude is one of the most irritating, it's one of the most annoying experiences we can have within ourselves. So it's not very interesting to nourish lassitude. And how do you nourish it? Trying to beat it away. There is a good reason for that. It's a sign when we go sluggish or we go refractory. It's a sign that we have a desire to fall and we feel disappointed that for some reason or another we weren't able to get there because something in our being is not doing its part. That's not a good approach. Get reproaching yourself and getting annoyed with yourself. When struck with lassitude, if we are practicing, the first thing is to acknowledge that lassitude is there. It's good. It's a sign. It's a thermometer. It's a measure of what's going on with you at this time. The second thing is you might be resisting to practice at this exact moment. It's always on this exact moment. It's not tomorrow nor yesterday, but then you sit to practice and you realize there is this kind of slow resistance. You can ask yourself, okay, I'm not in my best shape today to practice. Let's say that. What's going on with me? So I separated the time. I'm here. I got myself into this commitment with myself. Why is it I'm not able to get the energy together? Ask yourself. Check on yourself. Trust yourself. It's not about the exercise. It's not about filling in a checklist of duties you have to fulfill in order to have a good, gratifying day. That would be to fall into what John Kabat-Zinn calls leaving the realm of the human being, going to human doing. You're just doing. You're supposing that filling out a checklist of chores, running up and down like a crazy coot, trying to fulfill all your errands, you're living a satisfying life. All these things are important. Self-discipline, the sense of responsibility, being able to answer for certain things. It's extremely important for our well-being. It's extremely important for our spiritual evolution. But they can't become overwhelming duties. And when I become sluggish, I realize I'm sluggish, I might be sending signs to myself about things I must pay attention on. There is one thing very interesting. I once was in a car crash, and I was still a teenager. I had entered medical school, and we had this wonderful car bash. My dad was driving, and he bumped into the car ahead, but he bumped in before he was able to pull the brakes. So he did wham. Fortunately, the car ahead was not totally stopped. He was reducing speed, but my dad wasn't. And then we bashed. I whacked my forehead. And in those days in Brazil, it wasn't compulsory to use a safety belt. There's no duty about it. I wasn't wearing one, my dad, but no one in the car was. But my forehead flew on the windshield. Bam! When we got off, and the thing was all over, called off, we left, we changed the plates and left. There was no great damage, but I realized my neck had gone stiff. I told my dad, I said, Dad, my dad's a physician, Dad, my neck seems to be stiff. He said, oh, damn. Oh, damn. He went frightened. I said, what's going on with the guy? He just crashed his car. Now he's worried about the stiff neck of mine. He stopped the car, examined me, said, please tell me how this stiffness evolves. It's happened so much. It so happened that a couple of hours later, the stiffness had relieved. I was able to sleep in my bed with my pillow, and everything was fine. But I discovered later on that there is something called a neck stiffness when you have a cervical lesion. But then it's much stronger than the one I had. You really don't, your neck doesn't move in any direction. And you don't have pain, really. It's not about feeling pain. It's something automatic, reflex. And sometimes sluggishness can have that same nature. It can be there just protecting us from something else. Take it seriously. Take your time. Treat your body. Understand what's going on. Make contact with your emotions. Give them a break. Give them release. Unleash them. Let them breathe. Be kind to yourself. If you're feeling sluggish, probably you're not being sufficiently kind and accepting with yourself. Go ahead and use your laziness to expand your understanding about yourself. And it always has a meaning, like fever or like a stiff neck, as I said, and principally, mindfulness and health-promoting habits have this aspect to them because they deal with our being as a whole. Nowadays, we live with one of the more dangerous consequences of internet and other electronic devices. That is, your body, just like my body is right now, it's imposing itself. It's coughing over what I'm saying. Our body is not sufficiently taken into account. I've seen people who work on the net for hours and hours and hours, and then suddenly they get up to go to the bathroom, or they get up to take a stroll, and they say, "Oh, I have a leg." They lost conscience of having such a thing as a leg, such a thing as an arm. That's tragic. It's really tragic. And when we practice, sometimes nowadays, people have been practicing, I myself have been doing it myself, which is practice online. And again, it's about being on a screen. But you must remember your body exists. Of course, our practice takes into consideration our bodily dimension. But I say even meditation can be done online. So we can do lots of things online. It's very easy to do things without consulting our inner being. But when we practice and whatever we do it with our entire being, including the mute parts. I like to finish telling you that sluggishness usually comes from the silent, from the mute parts of our beings, of my being. It's where my being doesn't talk, not in the sense of words, but it sends its sensations, it sends its measures of energy, all these things. Because in days gone by, I mentioned that in my book. In days gone by, people were very disappointed in genetics because a very small portion of DNA was actually expressive. The greatest part of DNA seemed to be just pure structure, had no function whatsoever. People called it trash DNA. But we are so quick, so fast in dismissing what we don't understand immediately and calling it trash. It's very arrogant. I'm not saying they were. I say I was arrogant with them. I'm not walking out of what I do. But what I'm saying is this trash DNA later on was discovered to be regulatory DNA. It regulates the activity of the expressive part. And last, it was also discovered that we have epigenetics. With the development of epigenetics, which is above simply genetics, after the genome project, our genetic DNA is no longer a mystery. We have it. Now we have to understand it. And then we discovered that there's epigenetic mechanisms influencing DNA. And we have microRNAs. You can give a Google, microRNAs, and you're going to check that there are small portions of RNA that regulate the entire genome, and they are secreted and released by this silent DNA, which is about kind of something between 80 and 90% of DNA. It's a very, 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 very large part of our DNA is not does not responsible for one gene, the expression of one gene. That's the silent DNA. When we have the regions of our beings which are mute or not expressive, careful, don't call them trash. When you feel sluggish, don't consider sluggishness the enemy you must fight back. Understand it's something that's part of the present moment, deserves attention, and will have it if you really have a mindful attitude toward yourself, toward your being, toward your body. Well, that's it. Thank you very much. I hope it's been of use for you. If it has been, please do what we do in Brazil. We call it the 3 C's. Subscribe, comment, and share. We say curtir, compartilhar, comentar. 3 C's. Please, if you find our work interesting, if you want to help support us, please give us one of these 3 signs on our video. Thank you very much for now. See you soon with the continuation of these videos. Bye-bye.